Hey, what's going on, party people? Welcome to another edition of DJ to DJ. I am your man, DJ Fernando G, and today we have an inspirational guest today, and you're going to learn why I say inspirational. Let's welcome Byron Brizuela. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Good to
Likewise,
see
man.
you, man.
And I call you inspirational, man, because after reading everything about you, now you and I have known each other for a little while now, since
Yeah.
back in the early 2000s, and but nevertheless, I didn't know the full backstory about you and your
Oh,
beginnings and
man.
stuff, and so it's very interesting your story. So
Thank
and
you.
inspirational, like I said.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
as always, we're gonna start off with the simple question: when was it that you discovered turntables and the art of DJing? How long ago
Oh,
was that?
man. Seventh grade. I was probably gonna about to turn 12 years old. I went to a friend's house and he was playing with his, he had a pair of Technics 200s in his bedroom. And I saw him playing. I'm like, what is he doing? Because back in the day, I was an avid music collector. I
Okay.
was I was the guy making the mixtapes on off of the radio,
Okay.
with
Yeah.
my pause button and record, and I was a big,
Your little boom box.
countdown fan. I mean, yeah, I thought I made some of the coolest mixes on those with the pause button, but I started there. I started really passionate about just pirating music off the radio, if you will, right? Just copying it, getting it, and just love going everywhere. But more importantly, my love began with him saying, "Hey, man, I want to sell my turntables." And I went to my parents and I was like, "Oh, mom, dad, I know that I asked you for a lot, but I really, really want to get these turntables." And they thought it was a good idea. They thought, "Hey, you know what? Getting them a pair of turntables." My dad loved music. Said, "Why not?" So they got me the turntables, and I began to learn to mix. First thing I had to learn was to remove that rubber pad that they
Right.
came with. It was just a big old rubber pad. As I got rid of that, and then I just got my scratch pad, started working, and within a year, I think my parents got me my first gig. It was at a wedding for one of their friends, and I have a
Oh.
picture of it. I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh yeah, we gotta
Very
pop that in here.
12-year-old kids, just but since I knew music so well, I loved it, and I thought it was some natural to me, and I enjoyed the whole idea of making somebody's night special with what I was going to select, what I was going to curate for the night, and it would just became a total passion of mine, really.
That's
I,
awesome.
I, I DJ'd for about 10 years, from middle school. I DJ'd for all my middle school dances. I DJ'd for my high school dances.
That's cool.
I went around backyard parties. I did the whole thing. I was a big DJ. It was coming up in the 80s. So that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
Big time DJ. I had, ladies. My DJ name was Esquavive. It was something that I came up with. I wanted to be some kind of Frenchy, really. You remember
Remember that
all those crazy
everybody had
names.
those types of names, and it's like I ended up, it's funny because there's a little backstory. I started Gemini back in the day with a gentleman by the name of Filbert. His sister gave us the name. Now Gordy, Roger, and all these guys from Highland Park, they were going under the name Calypsody, and so Filbert and I decided to make our own group, and his sister said, "You guys should be called Gemini because there's two of you." I said, "Okay,
Wow.
cool." So then I shared the name with Roger and them, and they ended up taking it over, and they went along with it. So later on, I ended up changing my name to Night Reaction because I
Nice.
thought Night Reaction, I'm giving a nightly reaction when I'm spinning. But it was funny that
Oh
you say
man.
that because there was like, Optica and the Teddy Boys and all these
Oh
guys
yeah,
had
no, it
these,
was all sorts of different things.
right?
One of my things I used to love. I was a total b-boy. I mean, I used to do the whole, scratch and mix and rap, right?
Órale.
So I began. That was my early stages in music, just falling in love with the whole form of being a great, DJ, scratcher, mixer, and I did everything. I love genres, so I used to just love to cross genres. I was a big fan of hip hop, but a big
Hmm.
fan of new wave and disco, and all the things that were happening. If it belonged at a party, I wanted to play it. If it was something that was incredible, it was a great piece of music, I wanted it. I wanted just to. I still get excited about discovering new music after all these
Right.
years. It's one of my addictions. My kids call me out on it. They're like, Dad, what's something that really makes you really excited? Like, what? Hearing a new piece of song, new piece of music. You just love it. It's like food to me.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm a music junkie.
That's crazy. Now,
So
now, You actually immigrated over here from El Salvador, right, at an early
Yes,
age.
yes.
So,
Came
and
here,
you had some
came here around
challenges with the language,
five,
right?
Fernando, and landed right smack. I'm sorry.
I said you had some. The language barrier was a little difficult for you at the beginning, also, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I started kindergarten here in the United States without knowing it, zero English. I mean, it was like, and there was no ESL classes, and I
Yeah,
remember I was right smack in the middle of downtown LA, going to school, walking down to. It was quite a cultural change, to be
yeah,
honest with you,
yeah.
because coming from like El Salvador, and I was born in this town called Sonsonate. So I remember my parents telling me, my dad came to study here in the United States. He was a physical education instructor. So he came to study, and then my parents decided that best move for us was to come down. So we were going to be here while my dad was going to study school. And
Mm-hmm.
then he finished in 1980, and we were scheduled to go back, but then the Civil War broke out.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were like, nope, we're going
That
to
ain't
end up,
happening.
staying
Yeah,
here, man. It was the best. I was already an American. I pledged allegiance to the flag.
that's
I mean, I was definitely, America was my thing, the music, the culture.
yeah.
I was a kid of the 70s, and I even thinking about it, because I tell my kids, coming to America was so different. So um, I guess I fell in love with the whole idea of the American dream, like every immigrant kid,
Mm-hmm.
that this land is huge and great, and you can make something of yourself. So ever since I was really small, it was something that I wanted to be a part of, with America, and really participate in that whole make something of yourself
Right.
ideas. I'm still going after it.
That, and,
So,
and you're doing great, brother. You're doing great. So you mentioned earlier that you had a passion for collecting music and recording music from the radio and stuff like that. So when did you discover that music was your passion? Was that at a very early age, or did you just kind of start
you
discovering
know,
later on?
my dad was a huge music collector. He used to collect records and cassette tapes. So back then we used to belong to Columbia House.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
remember Columbia
yeah.
House
Columbia.
with
Pay the
cassette
penny.
tapes? A penny you would get, like, oh man, I was king of that. And you'd go around collecting tapes, and back in those days. But it was just a fantasy of ours. I think it was something that I would be able to connect with. Music was something I would just dive into, associate myself with. It was something when I was sad, I'd listen to music, I'd turn on the radio. It changed my life. I would do things with music. Music was a
Mm-hmm.
part of me. It still is. So, but I began collecting records, I think, in middle school. And I really, really realized that I wasn't going to be the jock type, or the, uh, other things. I wanted to be the DJ guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
the DJ guy. All my friends from high school, and they're not surprised to know that I guess I'm still in music.
Right. Right.
I ended up just pursuing that, going from DJing at parties, DJing for. I remember, one of my greatest things that I did for myself was DJ 2 years later at my high school's prom for my brother's graduation, and to have
Nice.
my
Nice.
crew
That's
up
cool.
there, and to have, and was my brother and my wife's brothers also generation that was graduating at that time. We played at the Disneyland Hotel, and
Nice.
it was back, when you had to carry those big old speakers and the
Yep.
amplifiers, and worry about your equipment getting hot, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and you hoping that you brought that extra crate just in case you needed those records.
Yeah. That's funny
Um,
because every DJ that I've interviewed, we've talked about the back in the day and having to carry the speakers and
uh,
how bad our backs are these days because of that.
Absolutely. No, I still remember. I mean, I had to do weddings at La Casa. Remember La Casa?
Oh yeah,
You had
Casa
to
Camino.
carry your
Yeah.
speakers up,
Up
and
the.
I'm like, oh, sorry, my quinceañera's in the fourth floor.
Gee.
Oh man, the fourth floor. So we had
Dunk.
to like literally carry speakers.
Yeah.
I was too young to really participate in the clubbing. For me, I was like,
Mm.
I was still a teenager. So the majority of my DJ background came from house parties, some clubs,
Mm.
but mostly house parties, weddings, quinceañeras, things that really allowed me to have a greater awareness of music, because I
Mm.
had to rock not only the teenagers that were celebrating their birthday, but their parents too,
Right.
and I had
Yeah.
to be able to have a selection of music that was going to be able to take me through the whole night. And looking back at it, I got really good at doing it. I was really fortunate to get booked a lot, but I was only a teenager doing these things, you know, and,
Right.
and I thought, I guess it must have been normal, but I don't think I'd hire a teenage DJ
Right.
these days, you know.
But it's funny because back in the day, it seemed like all the teenagers were the ones with the talent. You know,
That's true.
because we were out there. Because the same thing. I started off just doing weddings and quinceañeras and stuff, and I was sharing my cassette tapes with friends, and they would say, "Oh, I want you to DJ." And we would try to do the school dances to get exposure, and then that those kids would go tell their parents, "Hey, Fernando's good DJ. We want to hire him," and stuff like that. So it kind of got around. So, but the teenagers back in the day were the ones that dominated. Now I think that
Absolutely.
the promoters were the ones that were doing the clubs, bringing in the DJs.
I think a lot of my training came from my high school. I went to Bell High School in the 80s, and Bell High School had an aggressive high school parties. I mean, they booked some of the top talent of the day. We had some of the top, Cover Girls, Expose, all these big acts that you were playing that were going to our school. And I got a chance to really look into what it was to be an artist. So I was always there, but I still didn't, I'm more behind the scenes kind of guy, the DJ behind the decks,
Right.
although we're in back in those days, people were dancing. They weren't like staring at the DJ like they do these days. Everybody was like into their own thing,
Right.
But I saw music as a way to really identify with people and really like make them happy. So I remember when I first met, I married my high school sweetheart, Fernando.
Oh, congratulations.
So I could, one of the ways that I would make her fall in love was I'd make her these cassette tapes, which are now mixtapes, right? Love songs. And
you weren't playing the guitar. You weren't serenading her with the guitar, but you were serenading her with the turntables, huh?
Love you, and then start rapping and writing.
Check you out. You go romantic,
love, but hey, those were the days, and those were it was That's so awesome. Organic that you did music just to and music identified you as what you stood for. At least in my high school, there was you had the hip hop people, then you had the rock people and the new waves, and everybody had their whole little way of dressing and partying and their crowds, and so I couldn't help it, but I was more involved, instead of hitting the books, I was hitting social life. I was so intrigued by the different social circles and the parties that were going on. And,
it was an amazing time. I should have
paid more attention to the books.
Right. But you know what? Nevertheless, I mean, you've done amazing for yourself. So at what point do you start to say, I want to start remixing. I want to start changing the way things are? Because when I was on air at Viva 107.1, I mean, every week we would get CDs and promos from record labels. And probably out of 10 songs, 8 of them were remixes created by you. Okay. So it was like, you were a busy man. And I'm curious as to when you got the bug to say, you know what? I want to start making my own versions of these songs.
Well, I ended up going to Cal State LA for school. I went to go study business school. I've always been, again, the American dream. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to just be, change my whole economic status and everything. And I was pursuing all these different multi-level type, Amway and selling water filters and I'm in school because I'm like, all right, I need to find the quickest, fastest way to make money.
Yeah.
And my friends were, I still DJ'd. By that time I was doing raves. I had gotten into, I began doing, small house parties, and then I ventured off into warehouse raves in the early 1990s. And it was exciting. It was quite a blast, but I began really becoming intrigued with the blending of records, mixing songs and making new musical landscapes within the mixes, going for these longer mixes and really finding different kind of textures. And I realized that what I was really looking to do is to begin to get into the next step of music, which was music production. So I was back in those days, I was working at a storage facility in downtown LA. And I had this one guy that had a guitar, and I said, hey, you're a musician? I'm like, hey, what if I paid you, bought you some lunch, and you teach me some chords, teach me about music? I think I have a really good ear, but I want to learn what it's. So he began teaching me, and in that process, I began learning about it. And I think more than anything, it was me being a DJ. It was my DJ ear that allowed me to understand what to select, what to prefer. I couldn't play it for the life of me. I would get frustrated. That was a big thing, but I stuck to it. More than anything, here's what really made me stick. So before I really decided to get into music and make it a life obsession, I was a big time quitter. I quit everything I tried. I tried Amway, I quit. I tried selling this, I quit. Because when things got really, really tough, it wasn't for me, man. I wanted things done quick and I wanted it to be done fast. But when I decided to finally get into the career of music, I made a promise to God and to myself that I'd never quit. So
Good for you.
In 1992, right, in my 5th year of college, I remember going, because I was more involved in the parties than I was really going to school. I realized that I wanted to pursue the music business. There was no business like music, and I wanted to start from the ground up. I didn't want to just learn the business aspect of it, but I wanted to learn how to make music, how not only to pick and select it. So I began just diving into what it was like to make music. And it took me some time. It took me, and a lot of my work is up on the internet, and you can still hear my process. As a true creator, I began not trying to be afraid, because one of the biggest things that we are is we become, we get a little too hard on ourselves. And if you have a really good year, your stuff isn't sounding as good as your hero stuff. You know, and you get frustrated and you're like, and you quit most of the time. Yeah. But I decided that I'm that guy that quits everything, Fernando. So I wasn't gonna quit, and I kept at it, and it taught me to be tenacious, to go after things, and to actually not be afraid of what other people really care. I mean, I'm my own biggest critic, to be honest with you. And I still get into getting shy about releasing this or releasing that. But more importantly, I had to make a promise to myself that if I wanted to make it in music, it didn't matter what anybody else felt. I just couldn't quit, and I had to keep going. And that was the thing. That was the drive. And I just decided that I, like any athlete or anybody that gets into anything, there was a starting point, and I just kept getting better and better and better and better, and training and just kept at it, and here we are.
That's awesome. It's funny because I look back at artists like Moby. I remember when I was doing the nightclub circuit back in the 90s and stuff, and techno was, coming in, and it was, very popular and stuff. And he was like one of the bigger artists and stuff. And at the time I thought, man, this guy's got some cool stuff. Then later on, as he evolved and he started, getting airplay and stuff on radio stations all over the place, I was saying, is this the same Moby? And yeah, it was the same guy that was producing the techno stuff. And wow, what a difference in sound and everything. And I was just like, wow, I thought this was cool. This is badass, but that kind of sucked now that I look at it, now that I listen to it, But it was but it was still, like you said, the fact that you took the chance. I mean, I dabbled back in the same thing in the early 2000s and doing remixes and stuff when I was on air. And my shit sucked. Pardon my French, but nevertheless, it got released, in a small form, never went anywhere. But, I took the chance. I'm the type of person that I'd rather take the chance than to say, well, what if I would have done this? What if? I'd rather say I did it and I failed, but I did it. You know what I mean? I tried, at least, and that's what I admire about you, because you just keep going. And the best thing about you is that you keep evolving, because from doing those remixes, then you started developing talent.
Yeah. Well, actually, so when I got into music, that the big business side of me, because remember I went to business school, I understood that the whole managing artists and creating a label. And of course, we had, in the 90s, we had hip hop really take over, and Dr. Dre and P. Diddy and all these guys that were being, their own label heads and the head of their own culture. So I really looked up to these guys. They were really something that I wanted to be a part of. And I began working at not only working with artists, but I began managing artists at that time. But it was tough. It was really tough, because I'm working as a record producer. I would manage the guys that I was producing, really, but I never, stopped like really working with, with artists until I think the late 90s when I decided, you know what, you really need to focus on your own career. You really need to focus on getting yourself off the ground. And that's when I began working with remixing. What the funny thing was, I was involved a lot in hip hop, but there wasn't enough Latino talent. There
Yeah.
wasn't enough
Yeah.
Latino producers. And so it's really tough for any Latino to even make it back in those days as a hip hop head.
Right.
And so, and my passion lies in records. Whether it's hip hop, house, techno, whatever, if I'm playing and I'm spinning it, I want to produce it. That was my attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about, oh, I just do this or I do that, and that's cool.
Right.
People are like that now, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's great, and that's good. All power to them. But I'm very chameleon-esque in that sense. I love to just dabble, and again, that comes from my background of being that DJ that had to play for various crowds throughout the night.
Yeah.
Had to learn how to like satisfy different target audiences, because it wasn't just about playing all the English music. You had to go and dabble into the ethnic. You had to go, and not only that, and being Salvadorian, I had to learn Mexican music. I had to learn, or if I went to a Colombian party, I had to learn how to play for the Colombian crowd, right? You had to learn to play for the nationalities sometimes, because they have their own way of
different
listening
style,
to music.
yeah.
And if especially I doing like say a Mexican quinceañera, I had to find out, where are they from? Are they from the north, the south? You know what I mean?
Right.
What are they going to get down to? Because it's like,
is it cumbia? Is it norteña? Is it banda? Is it quebradita?
Right,
what is it?
Right. What is it? Right.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and there's so much culture, and so I love that. That was what I was into, the excitement of music, the stimulation of music, and just getting it, and what music does to people, what it does to your nervous system.
It's funny that you said, because I remember like when I started getting your remixes, like I think the first one that I got was Laura Pausini, and Entre tú y mi tiras, and then and I was just like, this is cool. I really like that, just that riff that you had on it, and it just blended in. Then I think I got an Enrique Iglesias, and then I got another artist and another artist, and I was like, wow, this is good stuff. And I was playing it every single weekend, every one of your remixes. Then I think I got a Celso Pina remix, which I was like, wait a minute. I go, cumbia. Now this is cool, and you added a really cool twist to it. It was it was still kind of cumbia-esque, but more modern. And then Aquid, and I was just like, what? It's like, where's he going now? And it was just like, you were just, but it was all very melodic. It had the rhythms. It was just all catchy, and it made you just start moving. Everything that you did was very cool.
Let me segue into that. You were asking me about when I was remixing, because I was being played at the radio stations. When you're playing at the radio stations, you have the year of all the A&Rs. So being out of LA, I had I had Universal, BMG, all the big A&Rs calling me, and they're like, dude, I have this new remix. So going and visiting all the A&Rs locally, I began to have, get into a rapport with them. And the next buzz thing was, we want to do what Eminem has done for the white kids. We want to find Latino rappers, Latino artists that are going to do the same thing for the brown kids. Mm-hmm. And because I had been managing artists and I'd been working with artists all along, I thought, man, I got to go out and look for them. And so I started calling my old friends. We started looking for new artists. And before I know it, I began with my proposal. And we were working on this new genre of music, which combined regional Mexican with hip hop. And it was right up my alley. Nobody was doing it yet, or there were several little camps, all around LA, but everybody was just, nobody could copy off each other. It was all right here. It was just like, what are you going to come up with? And it was a great opportunity for us to really go down the line and express ourselves with. I ended up going with this amazing mentor of mine who ended up discovering like Enrique Iglesias. He was the president of Fonovisa. His name is Guillermo Santisto. So he took over he had left Fonovisa. They had sold it to Univision Records. And Univision Records was just opening up in the early 2000s, and they were looking to make a name for themselves. And here we are with this new style of music. I was Aquid, JP, Flockies, all these guys coming out of Los Angeles, and we ended up going platinum. We ended up selling 2 platinum records, 2 gold records up there for these guys. I wrote a lot of the music. Remember, I told you I used to MC and rap. Yeah. So all these tools just happened to click right when it needed to happen. We used to go to Sábado Gigante, all these. I mean, we lived it. It changed my life, Fernando. Well, here's one of the funny things that I learned. So here I am, a top remixer in the Latin world, hearing all of my remixes played all the time on the radio, but I'm not making any more money from it. And I'm like, why am I not making, you know, these people are getting rich. Yeah, you just got paid your, you know, your
record
remix,
label industry, right?
and that's it. Right. And so like, if you really want to get paid, you need to write the songs, and you really lean to learn. I'm like, okay. So I began doing exactly that. I've been, you know, I again, I'm kind of a knucklehead about wanting to do things right in a sense. So I'm like, all right, I started writing, and people loved it. You know, people loved the music. Yeah. One of my, we got emails and letters, and it was revolutionary. It was a time and for that in the early 2000s where people were looking for a voice. They were looking to express themselves, and it was all new. And there was several great artists that came out, which was great because it wasn't just our group. There was other people that also did it, and we did it right before reggaeton did it. We became popular, and right after, you know, Aquid and JP began visiting Don Francisco, and then the whole Barrio Fino came out with Daddy Yankee and those guys. Our aesthetic was a little bit more West Coast with the white T-shirts and the khakis, and that wasn't as, I think, cool or eye candy as what, you know, Puerto Rico and the reggaeton movement was putting out, even visually. You know, it was so much more stimulating, so much more captivating than our kind of look. So I think the camera started eventually, and reggaeton was meant to, you know, take over the world. So we were one of the first ones to be swallowed by that whole movement. It was amazing.
But you had a great thing going there, man. I mean, it was just something that, you know, people were talking about, and like you said, it was localized here. People were feeling it because they were relating to it, especially here in Los Angeles. You know, I mean, everybody, you know, was just following through with it, and that's what I found, you know, pretty amazing. Because I mean, you know, Viva 107.1 was more of a Spanish pop station, and you know, when I got the green light from the program director to able to spin all of that, they're all like, it fits what you're doing, because the mix show that we were doing. So I think that opened it up, and then that's when stations started to realize there's a little something here to it. But like you said, you know, reggaeton came in and destroyed everything. Bastards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, reggaeton is, you know, it's out of this world. It's amazing. It's now this global sensation, and it continues to just make new waves, you know, and just from, you know, listening to the early beginnings of it, and coming out of New York with the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans, and really battle rapping to that. And then what the Colombians did, you know, recently re-evolving it, make it more commercial and making it to what it is now. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's very interesting. I mean, it's crossed over, very simple. And I mean, in back in the day, you wouldn't hear this on Kiss FM, you know, at all. And now it's like all over the place. And, you know, every artist in English or Spanish, you know, will do a reggaeton version of something, you know, and and it's just international, I guess. You know, it's everybody kind of relates to it somehow.
So, you know, one of the things that, because in music, I've been involved in so many different aspects of it. One of the things, so when I was pitching my remix, I ended up partnering up with this company, and we started this thing called the Remix Factory, where we had a bunch of remixers coming out of Los Angeles, and we were going around shopping this compilation of remixers. And we went to this music convention in San Diego, and I had a booth there, and we pitched this remix compilation to this one particular lady who ended up listening to my reel, and she called me up, you know, the following week, and she said, "Hey, I like what I heard. I like what you're doing. Would you be interested in making music for film and TV?" I said, I've never done that, you know. Sure. So she calls me over. I go to the West Side. They had a sweet, you know, studios out in Venice, and I remember just sitting with them, meeting with them, like, we love what you're doing. We want this, and, you know, we want you to mash it up and twist and spin it, and that's how I got my foot in the door, and I began working for these people, making music for film and TV, and then they began pitching commercials So
Nice.
I had several commercials pitched. One of them was a Coca-Cola commercial for Sprite. I ended up doing the whole gig. It was
Wow.
really cool because I was so naive to it. I didn't know how
Mhm.
hard it was to get commercials. I
Yeah.
just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure, man. And I just did. And back in those, I guess the sauce that I was cooking back then was hot, and it was the executive. I mean, the advertising agencies were loving it. And so I got a lot of commercials out of that. I got a lot of training, and it was at the same time that I was developing artists. So everything just kind of clicked. And my career has always been that way. When, let's say, the record world dies down, this other factor comes up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when the records went to hell, after the whole meltdown with CDs not selling
Yeah.
anymore, and then the record
Napster.
industry going into like, yeah, this whole 10-year lull.
Yeah.
I started getting into jingle writing. I began
Mm.
writing jingles because of the commercials that
Right.
I was
Right.
trained doing. And all throughout like the early 2000s, I had tons of radio stations. I did K-Love in Los Angeles, which is one of these premier
Yeah.
flag
That
stations,
is
right?
a station, a staple in Los Angeles for the Latin community. It has been here for so many years and has gone nowhere. And every Hispanic knows of K Love. So it is the biggest Spanish station in Southern California.
I always dream about getting something played on K-Love, but never quite. Only at night with the remix
Remix
shows,
shows,
but
yeah.
during the day, man, you'd hear my, that 107.5 K-Love. It was
Boom.
like, yeah,
That's
man,
me. That's
and
awesome.
it was a great time to hear. So I've been very fortunate, and not only that, music really, well, especially when I did the writing and worked with the rappers, that changed my life. I was able to buy a home in a community that was very privileged, and I was able to raise my kids there and give them something that I wanted,
Yeah.
which was in the sense that I wanted my kids to have, which was a proper education, having all the I guess the privileges of life, to be able to enjoy these things and represent. I think we moved to a community that we don't have a lot of Latinos around, but we're the Latinos and we represent proudly. I teach them to be,
That's
proud of their
awesome.
heritage to represent for their own. And it's important for us, because we've always been a part of that family that
Yeah.
does that. And
Now,
um,
a lot of what you're saying, like right now, the way I mean, it sounds amazing, and young people that are watching this will probably say, "Wow, that's awesome." It sounds easy. I think I could do it. But in reality, how difficult was it to get to where you are? How much work is actually put in?
it was, I mean, it's every day. It still is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you got to look at it like this. This is one of my son is recently doing a documentary, and I keep hearing this in this documentary. The coach says it's easy to dream big, but it's hard to work big.
Right.
Along with a big dream comes big work, comes a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
comes tons of stuff, and that's really, I mean, again, my mentality was I can't quit. I've quit so much already, that I can't stop doing this. And I just kept at it. I still, Fernando, I think that I tell my boys, because they're also aspiring artists now, Lord Zuela, Adrian Briz, check them out.
Yep.
They're out there doing their
Doing their
thing,
things.
but
Yep.
everyone has their own lane. I realize that everything that I've done in my life has been something that is just me, and if you just put yourself out there and you stop comparing and you stop worrying about, oh, are you good enough to be here or that or whatever. As a DJ, I think, am I good enough to play my own records next to
Right.
these masters, that I end up playing? But you have to take that chance and you have to go move forward to it. There's billions of people in this planet, especially now. There's great news. The music industry is alive, it's thriving.
Yeah.
Everything seems to get better for the creative. And if you believe in what you're doing, and if you believe in yourself and your sound, you get educated, you inform yourself, you get all your songs registered correctly, you get on the right distribution platforms, you're going to do well for yourself if you believe, if you make the culture, if you make that happen, there's got to be something that I'm going to cheer, there's got to be a backstory. There's got to be a reason why I'm going to cheer you on or cheer for you, right? Yeah. That's important. It's not hard, but I believe it's doable. I'm the type of person that believes it's doable. I'm hard-headed that way. Why? Because I've seen it happen over and over in my life. And I don't think I'm that great. I don't think I'm like, oh man, you're so talented. You're such a beast. But
you're always your own worst critic, as they say.
I just kept going. But so I tried and go for it, man. I tell my kids even now, that they're or the artists that I work with, it's everybody's own dream. Yeah. Right now, it's the world has laid it for even labels. Labels aren't signing you. They're going to wait to see what you're doing. You have to bring them a story. You have to bring them views, plays, following. You can't go up there and go, I got 1,000 followers. Yeah. Boost me up to 100, to 1 million. They're going to look at you like, what?
No, you got to bring 1 million.
Right. You got to figure it out. You got to make it out. So there is and you got to live in that present moment. I had right after I made it really, really big with the rappers and my life changed and I bought my home and I had an existential crisis. I didn't know what life was about anymore because I thought success was going to bring happiness to myself and it didn't. Mm-hmm. It only brought more worries and I was more like, oh shit, man, how am I going to do this? Or how am I going to stay on top of the charts? And I had to get away from it all. And luckily it was when the market was crashing and melting. So I went on a spiritual journey to learn to balance my life, to learn to love what I was doing and not just love it for the things that I thought it was going to give me, you know what I mean? But more loving it for the art, for being a participator, being a player in it, creating it. It's like, I see music now as I get older and older, more like food, like, I'm serving you this and I'm preparing it for you. And you might like it, you might not like it. It's all right. Not everybody likes, what people serve, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that it's not good. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's not good. It means that maybe for that person, your plate wasn't right, but that other person seemed to love it and he wanted seconds.
Exactly. So some people like sushi, some people don't.
Right? You know what I mean? And music is very, people have particular tastes. They have particular ways of how they interact with their own personal experience of music, and so you have to respect that.
Yeah
And that's kind of how I see it.
That's bomb, dude. I mean, I who would you say are the artists that you're listening to today? Like what is the music that Byron listens to when he's not recording, he's not producing? What do you enjoy listening to on your Sunday afternoons when you're just chilling?
Wow, it's a great question. It depends on my mood, but I've always been I stole this from Clive Davis, this book many moons ago. It was before his now autobiography, but I read once that every week he went and listened to the top hits from every chart around the world, and he would carry a cassette tape with him and just to keep his ears fresh. So I go to beats of the week. I'm on Apple, I'm on Spotify. I'm always listening to what the curators are doing. I love music and I love new music and I'm always excited about it. And then I'll listen to the trend makers, the guys that are, pushing the envelope, whoever it might be. Sometimes I love the fact that we old folks are also still doing it great. There's, and the young guys are pushing the envelope, but there's a good balance to it. You start seeing I see it with my young artists and the young composers that I work with, and how daring they are. And it's always fun to be daring and to be pushing the envelope, but at the same time, there's that balance of knowing how much to do and you know what I mean. That always that age and time gives you. I love to listen to a lot of different music, Fernando, to be honest with you, and again, because of film and TV, which is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, for almost full time, I've been able to just go into different, for example, I had to do recently, I was hired to create these bolero mariachi cover songs. and they're one of my top hits on Spotify, man. They're on, and
Nice.
if you look at the top mariachi music, and you open it up, and there's Vicente Fernandez, and there's all these other guys, and there's Byron Briz on the list. It's hilarious, and it's like, but I've learned to not. I'm not a musician. I'm a curator. I curate music like a DJ does.
Mm.
My DJ skills have never. That's the only thing that saved me. If anything, I knew I could be sitting in with a virtuoso musician, but he doesn't. I don't think he knows what I want my crowd to hear. So I'm going to bring it out of him. He might think, "You sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to do that. Just do that."
Do it. Go with it.
And it's you're the curator. You're like the DJ. You know what you're going to play behind that record and the next record, and you know what you're going to feel. And you know what you're going to do with them. You know how you're going to take them down, bring them up, all that stuff. Still hasn't left me, and that's what I'm really good at. Is I think being able to pick things that have this kind of bite to them, and I think it came from all those years of being a young teenager with very little money, having to go buy records. I have only $20. I'm gonna have to buy 3 records, and they better be good.
Right.
So you had to pick these things, and you began learning, and those things help you. Love music, love listening to it, but I'm a junkie of popular consciousness. I love what people are into, the masses are into a lot, because it stimulates me. But
diversifies you.
I might agree with a lot of it. I might not agree with a lot of it, but I definitely want to be a person that wants to intuit what the masses are into and what they love. So in the meantime, right now, I've been making a lot of instrumental music. As a composer, as a producer, as a DJ, I've gone from making hip hop, house, techno, chill, to making mariachi, banda, norteño. I mean, really traditional stuff. I'm not on my own, with other guys.
Right.
The collaborations, Fernando, are the most amazing stuff.
I've seen you in the studio. I mean, you posted some videos and stuff from time to time, and all of a sudden I see these guys jamming on a guitar, and then the next video was some guy on a trumpet, another guy was doing this, and I'm like, man, check out Byron, man. He's not messing around. And I got to tell you, man, the studios that you work out, wow. I mean, they're just, I mean, I see these massive boards and stuff, and man, I'm over here working off of my Mac and my little, Mackie mix board, and I'm looking at you doing your crazy stuff. I'm like, wow, that is awesome, man.
Thank you, my brother. It's a labor of love. They say living the dream. Many of these musicians, you're going, how you doing today? Living the dream, living the dream.
Go, man.
So you have to wake up to live the dream. You have to put the work in. Today I find myself getting all my songs, all my catalog ready. There's a big new movement coming with music, with the Music Licensing Collective. They're out there to help you get your monies paid. Everything's being corrected, and all the.
It's a different ballgame now. It's definitely a different ballgame now.
Oh man, you can actually make money. You can go. I can go and take my music, my sound, what I earn a year, to the bank and say, hey, look, I make this much money a year. Can you give me a loan? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure.
There you go.
It wasn't like that before. Right. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Because back when you didn't know how many records were actually being sold.
Exactly.
You could have sold 5 million. They reported 3.
Yep. It's funny because I did a deal, and I'm not going to mention the label that I worked with. When I was on air, I had this little label come up. It was an independent. They said, we really want to release one of your remixes, and we want to do a mix compilation of yours. Are you interested? Yeah, sure. We worked out a deal, signed a little agreement, and they bought advertising, and we were promoting it all over the place, and I'm going to the stores where I saw that they were sold at. How's that CD selling? Oh, it's doing good. It's doing good. Yeah, we sold out, and we had to order some new ones. I'm like, all right. And then that little reports that I was getting didn't seem to kind of concur with what I was seeing, right. And I was like, what's going on here? So I ended up getting juiced on that deal, but lesson learned, and it was different back then. It was a the labels, I think, knew the industry so well. They knew how to benefit from it, and all for them. And I think Absolutely. It ended up biting them in the ass when Napster came along and when everything went to hell, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
So they got to be quite honest.
Crazy experience. It's been 15 years. I mean, this dread. And now with the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a whole change, the attitude. We have had more money in our industry than we've ever had, I think. And it continues to grow. So it's a great time to be a creative. It's a great time to just continue
That's
to
awesome.
explore.
Now I want to backtrack just a little bit before we end off here. Now we talked about your recording studio and your massive boards and everything, but when you first started, if you go back to your first remix that you worked on, what was it that you were working with, technically, as far as equipment
Sure.
wise?
When I decided to become a musician, the first keyboard that I bought was a Korg 01W. So we used to work off of the workstations, right?
Workstation, yeah.
I didn't do my Laura Pausini record. In fact, was created on a. So then I had to buy a sampler because when I got into remixing, the Korg didn't have a sampler, so
Right.
I got a Kurzweil K2000
Yeah.
sampler, and those were my keyboards, and I would get. My sampled sounds for the Kurzweil, and I would get my analog kind of fuzzy sound, and then my O1W would control everything, and I had a 4-track, and that was a big part of my beginning. Probably that's what I built my empire with back in the day.
That's fun.
I still have those 2 pieces of keyboards there in the garage, just catching dust, and it's sad because you know the history, you know what those tools have brought you, those instruments have made, and you like some people are like, don't get rid of them. Other people are, I don't even know what to do. They're there now.
Yeah. But it's better that I always say it's better that you hang on to that, because you never know when there's going to be a resurgence for those sounds and stuff like that. Because everything, comes back around.
Most music now is genreless. I mean, you listen to, is that hip hop, rock? What is it? It's just a mashup of everything. EDM came, and then EDM just got into all these little micro genres, and then from there it just exploded. You had Nashville come in, and then Nashville, and the urban sector and the pop sector, and now everything's just, if it's good, it's good. You know what I mean? But you study a lot. One of the things that I love, and I want to be sure to talk about this before we end, is this new company that I have called the Latin Music Collective. So the Latin Music Collective is a sync company that I have with BMG. BMG is one of the biggest music companies in the world, and we are currently the ones that are supplying all their Latin music. And with the whole thing about this catalog is that it's made by Latinos, all right? It's 100% made by Latinos, and or half Latin. There's got to be a Latin heartbeat in the process of creativity. Why? Because I believe that we as Latinos, we make our art a certain way, and this is our spin on it. Nice. And this is the way, and it's not just, it could be house music. For example, our good friend Andres Mijangos. I mean, I love his style of house music. You know what I mean? He's a badass at what he does, and those are the type of things that I got one of the Rob Mendoza. I have a CD coming out called Border Frequencies. He's one of the original guys from the Nortec Collective.
Oh, Nortec.
I've had a lot of these. So check out my stuff. Latin Music Collective. It's on Spotify. You'll be able to.
Well, we're going to share all your links right here in the description, so everything's going to be right there, man.
Oh, awesome!
So everybody can click on all your stuff, man.
Discover. I mean, there's a lot of you'll find one of my greatest stuff that still pops up a lot. I did check this out. So back when I started doing remixes, nobody would give me any work, so I began remixing covers. I had this one guy from a conjunto that did, cumbias, and he sounded a lot like he used to go and pose for the Sonora Dinamita guys. So I'm like, hey, dude, just come and sing some of those songs for me. And I did this cumbia remixes back in 1999. And those are still one of the hot things being played on my playlist.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. So I've always been pushing that envelope, and I really believe that if you find your niche in music, do what you love. If you're a DJ, do what you spin, do what you love. Make sure that you first are satisfied. Kind of like a chef, right? A chef's gonna be cooking, preparing. It's like he's gonna first be like, oh yeah, Mamma Mia, right? Or whatever they do before you give it out. So make sure that you're happy, and sometimes maybe the potatoes weren't ripe, and it might not taste, exactly the way you wanted, but love it regardless. Go
Yeah.
out and push it. That's important.
That's the important thing. Well, listen, brother, I want to thank you for your time. As I said at the beginning, you are truly an inspiration, and
Wow.
you are definitely living the American dream, because coming from El Salvador at the age of 5, having the language barrier, you have literally transformed yourself into an extremely successful businessman, producer, songwriter. And seriously, brother, I admire you so much, and
Oh,
thank you for the talent that you've shared with us throughout the years, man.
Fernando, I really appreciate it. I'm rooting for you and your family, your boys, dude. They remind me
Thanks.
so much of, I have my boys now are in their 20s, but when
Yeah,
I see your boys, it really reminds me of when I used to be with them, playing, enjoy them, have a great time with them. Now is the time. Teach them
definitely.
everything you know. Before you know it, they're going to be old and they're going to be
Yeah,
teaching you things.
yeah. Well,
So,
I got one of them for sure has got the music bug. My eldest one, Tristan. Logan, I think he's going to be more of on the business aspect of it.
hey,
He's more the analytical guy, but Tristan, we're working on his mixes right now. He's getting ready to do his first live stream, and he's literally messing around with GarageBand, learning how to sequence things and stuff.
that's
So
awesome.
he's got it in him, and I'm
Anytime
really
he wants
excited.
any tips, send them my way, man. I'd be more than happy
Oh, brother,
to
I'm definitely going to take
be
you
there
up
for
on
you
that, man.
guys. You
I'm
got it,
definitely
man.
going to take you up on that. So, brothers, sisters, thank you very much. Byron, I appreciate you. Make sure that if you like this segment of DJ to DJ, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course, click that bell so you get notified when we got another amazing talent like Byron on. And of course, all of Byron's info is going to be on the description down below, all the links. So make sure you click on each and every one. Brother, thank you so much. God bless and stay safe, man.
All right, you got it, man. Thank you.